is one of my favorite pieces that I found on Pinterest. It's very rustic, it's very me, and it's very scrap woody. So I grabbed some 1x4s and I cut these down to size. And to make sure I got the same cut, I just put them right on top of each other and gently check that line with its little shadow there, locked it into place, and cut the other two. I painted them off camera. You're welcome. I save y'all that. I know y'all hate to see me paint. Just kidding. I painted 2 of them brown and 1 of them white. And I didn't care if it was, you know, not fully. I'm going for the rustic look. So dingy it is. Okay, dingy it is. And then I cut 2 little squares of burlap just to fit right in the center of these brown pieces and frayed the ends. Next, I'm taking my makeshift spreader here, you know, the top of a painter's stick, just in case you're wondering, that's what it is. And we are going to spread. I always struggle opening the top of this. And of course, the little holes always got stuff stuck on in it. So we're not even going to go there. Commence all the tips in the comments. So I spreaded all of the tacky glue on our piece of wood. And then I just laid down the burlap. If you make sure this stuff ain't real thick, that burlap is just going to automatically stick. And then in several hours, preferably the next day, you're going to have a nice piece of burlap really stuck on to whatever piece of wood you're using. And this works with fabric as well. For our white piece, I got something special for this one. Oh yeah, we're going to decoupage this beautiful napkin and this little wood slice I picked up in a 2-pack from Dollar Tree. First, I'm giving it a white base. I like to do that, especially when I'm doing a napkin, because it gives us a really good, clear picture of our napkin once we get it decoupaged on here. I did not care for any particular grouping of the florals in that napkin, so I just ripped out 2 sections and I'm going to attach them to make them look like they're one section on our little slice here. So I don't have to use any additional tools and I can manipulate this how I want. I'm just taking a very small amount of Mod Podge and then pressing down with my finger, just a little tappity tap tap tap, and that is it. No special tools or anything like that. Doing a tiny amount and then pressing allows me to minimize the wrinkles for something like this. I'm going to sit this to the side and let this dry before I attempt to remove it, because if you try to do that while it's still wet, it will rip the napkin, and I wasn't trying to have that. Once these pieces were completely dry, I'm bringing in a little painter stick here just to kind of level everything out, find my center, you know, create the whole, make it look like I worked really hard to center everything, okay? But really, I'm just using a permanent marker, a painter stick, and a couple little dots to help me. And this fuzz. Why? Why does that stuff happen to me? I don't ever know. But the fuzz, like fuzz from burlap is messy. Like, somebody forgot to let me know, but I'm not forgetting to let you know. It makes a mess. There's crusty bits, there's fuzz. Weird things come off of burlap. Weird things. To make sure the I and the U were the same size, I just kept putting the 2 pieces next to each other and adjusting with the marker. That was the beauty of using the marker versus paint. Now that our napkin is dry, I'm taking an 80 grit sandpaper and getting rid of the excess around our little wood slice. We're putting this right in the center of our little white wood piece. And of course, you know, I can't get the lid off because the actual tube is all caked up with, and I know there's tips and tricks to keep it, but I get lazy and I quicken in a hurry. You guys do that where you just put it to the side when you're done and then you regret it later when you need it. That's the life that I live, on the edge of crafting all the time. I'm just saying, I know there are tips and hacks and tricks to make things easier, and sometimes I'm just like, muck it. I ain't got time for it. I just want to get it over with and move on and then suffer the next day. But don't do as I do. You know what I mean? Do as I say. Learn from my mistakes. These laser cutouts, I'm pretty sure I picked up from Hobby Lobby, and I'm using that as my heart right in the center here. The pieces on Pinterest had some ribbon, and I had these little pieces that are like fringe, you know, they got little dangly bits, give me that boho vibe. We're gonna bring in the stapler to attach them on here. On a side note, y'all, sometimes I do like 3 or 4 takes of me bringing in the stapler different ways because I want it to be theatrical. Because I know those of you that have been with me for a long time, and if you're just coming in, welcome. The stapler is such a pun and a joke on this channel. Like, oh my gosh, there's just always something going on. So I'm always trying to just pump it on. Anyhow, let's move on. I am using a little bit of tacky glue and one of these little leaf pieces I had laying around with some wood flowers just to finish up these pieces, and that's going to be it for these. Here's our Pinterest inspiration, and here's mine. I've been a fan of these tabletop hoop pieces for some time. They got the boho vibe going on, and Dollar Tree always has this 2-pack. Forget the fact that like one is missing. Okay. They have a 2-pack of these, usually at the store. We're going to use the large one in the pack for this project. Grab a base. Dollar Tree has a bunch of different options for you to choose from, and the wood pieces are actually pretty nice. Then it's time to bring on in your stapler. For a little bit of added stability, I decided to pop some wood glue in there and then attach both pieces. I went with a round base. I popped 3 staples in this joint and allowed it to dry before grabbing our floral bits. Now, I had some pieces from Hobby Lobby that I recently picked up for $1.49 and 99 cents, along with some Dollar Tree pieces. And I just kind of attached them with some hot glue, holding them into place. And then once that dried, I smushed some tacky glue in there for a long lasting hold. You could absolutely paint your hoop and base whatever color you would like, but I think for the fall season, this neutral was perfect. We are going to dupe this beautiful high-end piece I found on Pinterest for under $5. First, we're going to need one of these little gems from Dollar Tree, some PVC pipe, and a couple little connector pieces. This is going to create the little faux faucet that we're going to put inside this piece. And don't worry, they're extremely inexpensive. You can grab these from Home Depot. There's a little stand right in the plumbing area where they have all the PVC connectors and pipes. You can grab a 2-foot piece for $1.74 or whatever size you want. I grabbed this size, and then make sure you grab the right little connector piece. I picked up these, they were 67 cents each, and I grabbed 2 of them. For legs, I'm choosing to use these tiny little snowman pieces I pick up around Christmas at Dollar Tree. Whatever paint you choose to use, make sure it works well with galvanized metal. I'm going to use DIY's paint, and I keep a link down in the description box below if you're ever interested. Sammy over at Unicorn Dust Designs keeps it. Other options would be a chalk paint or a multi-surface paint, or you could even do a nice clear coat spray paint over this and then paint it with another paint to give you a good adhesive start. Another option that I really like to use and I have easy access to is Waverly. I'm going to use this for the pipe piece, and with both paints I only had to do 2 coats. I like using a pouncer whenever I'm working on something that isn't wood. I feel like the paint grabs better than using a paintbrush. To each their own. This is what just works best for me, but I love how amazing chalk paints or the clay-based chalk DIY paint covers, and you don't have to spend so much time painting. You just have to wait for the dreaded drying time. I also painted the legs black so it matched the Pinterest piece, and then took a couple minutes with the little sponge that had some black on it and just distressed around. I had to take the sander though to sand off the sections where the words were so they pop through. I was thinking about painting over it and then I'm like, I'm scared this might look messy. Honestly, it took me a couple seconds to sand it down enough that the black print on those words popped through. Since they were raised just a little bit, it worked out fine. Make sure you get all that dust off there, especially if you're going to seal over this. I used some tacky glue and hot glue to attach the legs and our PVC pipe piece. You could use E6000 and Gorilla Glue gel along with some hot glue to get that instant hold, and then you have that long lasting hold with the other glues. I added a little extra hot glue behind our faux faucet just to make sure that it didn't fall over, and let this completely dry overnight. I did use my miter saw to cut down the PVC pipe. You could absolutely use a miter box. I've done that before and I just swung the sizes, my friends. So use your eye and make some judgment according to what you think will look best in your faucet. I have to say this is probably my favorite Pinterest piece I have ever duped. Kudos to the original maker. This grapevine candle topper I found on Pinterest had such a stunning everyday look to it. I was inspired to go digging in my stash and I found this beautiful candle holder I had. It's a little crusty, okay? A little crusty. I got this from Hobby Lobby some time ago and it was on clearance, but I done ripped the sticker off, so I don't know how much I actually paid for it. Yeah, sorry about that. But if you don't have any crusty, musty candle holders sitting around your house, Dollar Tree has a bunch of options for you to choose from that only cost $1.25. I remember the good old days when things were just $1. Anyhow, truth be told, I really should have took this sucker to the sink and did a nice clean on it, but instead I got a little bit lazy and I grabbed a baby wipe and just wiped it down. I'm not painting the piece, so I'm not too worried about that. We're just using it for decorative purposes. So a nice little wipe down should do the job for this. I want to be able to reuse my candle holder, so I found a little piece of wood that fits perfectly in the top of this. For the construction of our ball on the top, I'm using this garland I grabbed from Dollar Tree. This stuff holds its shape really well, people, so if you're looking for something to be able to construct a shape of any sort and to hold its shape, this stuff has your back. Now I cut this in half and I used 2 of the garlands, but only created 3 circles. Once I had the shape of the circle that I wanted, I wrapped the 2 ends that met so they hugged each other like that. And I did this for all 3 pieces and then started kind of putting them into each other to see how I was going to be able to spread the ball open and then attach them together. Surprisingly, this was rather easy. I cut a tiny little piece of the same vine just to wrap around the top of our piece and then twist around underneath of it so we wouldn't see anything popping over the top of our little ball. If you want to glue your piece down to your candle holder, you go right ahead. Like I said, I want to be able to change this out and continue to use the candle holder. So I applied all my glue right on top of that little wood flower we have that fits in here perfectly. Add some tacky glue on here to get yourself a nice long hold. I added a couple little succulents and some extra greenery and absolutely love how this piece turned out. I personally forget that apples are a great way to decorate for the fall. So as I was looking on Pinterest, I seen some really beautiful pieces, but nothing that I was actually looking for. So I popped into Dollar Tree and seen these beautiful new galvanized buckets that have fresh apples on them, and then headed over to their little faux food section and grabbed a couple apples. I took my twine out and I glued a little bit onto the bottom of this basket. Now I do want to let you know that it is okay to start with the hot glue to get that twine on there, but definitely follow up with some tacky glue, like smush it in there if you want this to really hold, because that glue will pop right off with with the twine. So just keep that in mind, that that has happened to me in the past. Now people, don't have me perpetrating to you. If you have a large piece of styrofoam, please use that. Okay, you're gonna see me using this little baby joint and gluing it down, because that's what I had. You feel what I'm saying? But use the big piece. Okay, splurge. That's what I had. And then I'm using some of Dollar Tree's picks. I love the picks that have like the different florals, and they got the pumpkin, and they just look really high. Oh, and they had this stuff. Have you came across this stuff? Didn't have a name. It just said $1.25, and it smells good. Okay. I cut that up. I put some in there, some little leaves. I covered up our styrofoam with some burlap. Pop those apples in here, and oh, I am so happy with this piece and how it turned out. What do you think? I love the idea of these air plants I seen all over Pinterest. There were so many different ideas for these, and I'm like, Dollar Tree has these little live edge pieces that we can just, normally they got the little hangers, but I cut them off, okay? I did that off camera, okay? Don't yell at me. Anyhow, cut the little hanger pieces off, and they also have these in an oval shape and in a circle. And you can create these little air plants as well, or you could use a regular piece of wood if you want. Take some florals. I had these picks laying around that I thought were just stunning. And we're going to use tacky glue and some hot glue to attach this. This is a little piece of metal lace ribbon that I have from Hobby Lobby. You can use the Dollar Tree version if you can get a hold of that. Just keep in mind, you might want to put a sealer over it because it will rust, okay? If you don't care about the rusting, then just leave it alone. I'm just here to inform you of what I know. You cut as much of these little picks off as you want. I am not sure ever how to do florals, so I always cut more and then kind of, eliminate as I go. I am just horrible, which is why I don't do wreaths a lot or floral arrangements on the channel, because it's just not in me. I'm very jealous of all the other content creators who have that in them, because they're absolutely talented. One of them being my good friend Sammy over Unicorn Dust Design. She makes beautiful floral pieces. I'm always like, this girl's got it going on with this floralness. She got the floral touch, and I'm over here just like praying. It makes sense by the time I get done with it. Anyhow, I'm taking some of the tacky glue and just laying it down behind the florals, and then I'm going to put more over. I'm telling y'all, this stuff is like amazing to use. It holds in so well with a little bit of hot glue for that initial hold. And you will not know that the tacky glue is even there because it dries clear. And usually my pieces hold so well since I've been using this stuff in combination with the hot glue or Gorilla Glue gel. I love the way the pieces turn out using this stuff. Once I was happy with the florals I had one there, I then bent up the little metal ribbon so there was like a little hump in there, and I just pressed it on down. I took some hot glue and went over the edges and a little bit underneath so we could just get an initial bond on there, and then I let this dry 24 hours, and I absolutely love how these little salt and pepper shakers are super darling. I wanted to recreate these, but using Dollar Tree's what I like to call Parmesan cheese shakers. Let me know in the comments below what you call these. We're going to remove the lid because we're not going to need that, along with the tag on the bottom. I'm choosing to go with a white color instead of the teal color in the original piece. I'm just switching it up according to what's working for me with my decor. Make sure whatever paint you're using works well with glass, and it's always a good idea to make sure your glass is clean and you wear some gloves. I'm keeping this so I'm not too worried about any issues with separation with the paint or getting fingerprints on it. And feel free to paint the bottom. I always have people ask if you paint the bottom. Paint as much of your pieces as you want, my friends. Sometimes I don't, just to save time, but it doesn't hurt to paint the bottom. And yes, seal over it if you want. You could throw some Mod Podge over this. You could spray it with a spray paint. A clear coat Rust-Oleum would work as well. I took some twine and wrapped it around this sucker a couple times, tied a little piece, and then cut off any extra, adding an adorable flower right to the side. Be painting this beautiful piece that I found off Pinterest. Are you questioning my painting skills? Because if you are, you really shouldn't. When you click on that subscribe button, I'm talking we DIY all kinds of stuff, and that includes painting our own stuff on some live edge wood. The piece on Pinterest actually uses a canvas. We're going to be using a live edge wood. I do stain art, I do wood decorative art, so that's what we're using in these colors. First, we're going to take these two colors and we're going to kind of blend them together with a little bit of white and use some water. I have a little spray bottle. If you do not, just dip your paintbrush in some water and make sure it stays a little wet. This is going to help us to move the paint around on the piece of wood, and you're going to want to start out heavy on the edges and blend your way in to get that light color in the center here. I am also not going all the way over to the edge. I am going to blend this paint into the wood so it fades like an ombre look. I know what you're thinking, Brandy, you're wild. Listen, if you need more detailed information, I have your back. I actually do a Tutorial Tuesday series on my channel, and I will link the tutorial for this if you're seeing this after I publish it on Tuesday. Here I'm just taking a little sponge with some water, and we are just moving the paint to the edge. We're being very careful to make sure we don't take it all the way over to the live edge section, so we have some of that beautiful wood tone pop through. For the base of the tree, we're going to use this brown and mix it with some black. Now, I like to lay down the darkest color first, and don't be afraid to use more than one color brown, mixing it with the black. It gives your tree a nice dimension and gives it a little bit of a textured look, and there's really no right or wrong way. We're just kind of taking the paint and bringing it to where we have our tealish blue color where it meets right there. We're going to keep our outside edge fairly rickety because it is a tree. We don't want it to be perfectly straight. The bottom pops out a little bit more than the top. And when we get to that middle area, we're going to start creating our branches. Now, I will tell you that I was consistently stopping while filming this because the picture was on my phone and reverting back to checking to make sure that I was keeping up with the basic structure of the Pinterest piece. I kind of went out and did my own thing in certain spots and just put little branches and stems where I felt they looked nice according to how I painted the tree, because it wasn't on a canvas. This live edge did have a shape to it, and I wanted to make sure that I was not leaving huge gaps on this. I did use different sizes of paintbrushes. Nothing particular like you should have to use this. I'm not a professional painter. I don't do this to give those types of tips. I just give you the types of tips that I know works for me. Like this particular brush, I feel is really good for making little petals. The angle of it and the size of it It really works out perfectly, and it allows you to get that point on there. And making little petals is super simple. You can do this with any color. You just put a little bit of paint on there, you angle your brush, and then just pull it to each side and then color in the center. You'll notice I didn't have every single petal touching a brown spot because we're going to come back in and tie that in, adding our little extra brown stem pieces and make like a little vein down the center just like this. So all I did was I did the vein first, and you can wiggle that sucker however you want and then just add in the little V on the sides and just kind of hug the edge of the petal and bring it right on down to whatever section of the branch that you want it to connect to. The Pinterest version did have more petals on it. I kind of just threw in here what I felt made sense for my version, even though my version is pretty damn close, if I do say so myself. I was really happy with how this piece turned out. The most difficult thing about this was the heart, in my opinion. If you want to start off with something simple for yourself, if you haven't watched any of my tree paintings, this was fairly simple, I feel like, as well. You guys voted on me painting barns and scenery of barns for spring, so that's about to get real interesting. And I want to thank all of you for the ideas and for voting on that, because it helps me bring you guys content you enjoy watching. Before I put the heart on here, I wanted to add a couple more touches just to kind of bring out the piece. And I took some black paint, went around the edges, and I put a couple little lines in certain spots and just kind of blended that out with my finger. I also took some of the light color paints and did that as well. I'm using this paintbrush right here for our heart, and I'm starting by just doing half. And let me tell you something. I was definitely really nervous, and I messed up, and I do go over that in the tutorial, and I'm going to show you here as well and quickly talk about that. So for this, whenever you're using a lighter paint on a darker background, it does not pop out. And when you're trying to create something like this, because it's supposed to give you the impression that it is carved in the tree, it can be a little bit of a pain getting that lighter color to pop out while making it look like it's in the tree. Now, if you're thinking, Brandy, why don't you just use chalk paint because it's thicker? Chalk paint is going to give me a depth on something that I don't want depth. Acrylic paint is extremely flat and chalk paint is not. So I like using acrylic paints for projects like this because we want it to stay on the piece when I'm doing my wood or soak in. And that's even the same for a canvas, unless you're going for more of a textured look. I just prefer this kind of paint. To fix our heart, now that I have it all colored in and I'm happy with the color and the background is not popping through anymore, I am taking a little bit of black and just tapping around the very edges and pulling it with the grain of what looks like on the tree. So this way it gives us the appearance that on each side of the heart, now I don't do it for the entire thing, but I do it for a lot of it, but it gives us the appearance that on each side of the hearts, the tree is still going up and down while the heart is moving sideways and up in curvy ways, if that makes sense. Now, I did use a sealer on this. I used some of my favorite Dixie Belle sealer to get this piece all nice and sealed in. It's absolutely beautiful. I love how this turned out. I am running out of live edge wood, so I am gonna have to pick up some more, but how stunning it did. piece this gorgeous high-end piece I found on Pinterest was actually a video, so I had to keep pausing to try and get good pictures so we can dupe this. We're gonna need 2 of Dollar Tree's wall wood hanging decor pieces, and we're gonna just chop off the little hangers because we're not gonna need those. On the Pinterest piece, there were 2 gold frames. I wanted a thicker frame and found these wall decor pieces at Dollar Tree and just grabbed these up. I figured they would work perfectly until I realized I couldn't pop them out, so I had to think. And then I brought in the hammer, this little tiny baby hammer, so we could just tappity tap 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 right on the backs of these and pop them right on out. It worked like a charm, luckily. Just brace the frame on something and you're good to go. Dollar Tree really is making some quality stuff when you can't even break something on purpose these days. I removed the hangers on both the boxes because we're not going to be needing any of them, and then grabbed the sander just to get any of the extra crusty bits that were left after hammering out the back, so this way it's smoothed on down. I did not like that you could still see the wood, and to make sure it looked just as high end as I could get it, I grabbed some white paint and went around the entire piece. I'm going to be using Dollar Tree's wallpaper in this design to wrap around our wood pieces. Keep in mind, they do not cover this entirely, and I know some of you, the little break would bother you in the design. So you make sure you get some contact paper that would cover the whole piece. Or if you want it, you could add some spackling to the holes and then sand that down and paint it up whatever color you want, or stain it up whatever color you want. I really loved this greenery and wanted to apply it onto our wood piece. And these wallpaper sheets are super easy to use. I cut the corners like this so that way once I wrapped it around, there was a little bit of overhang, and then I could trim it to make sure that there was nothing showing. I took some tacky glue and hot glue and attached little beads right over the hanger holes to create feet. Then I applied more tacky glue and hot glue to the insides where we're going to place our first shelf. I made sure not to overlap them so they don't cancel each other out. And then I grabbed the shelf and gently placed it so it overhung on the outside just a little bit, and then did the same thing on the other piece. I applied the top shelf on and I let this dry overnight to ensure that everything was glued really well together before I started using it. How simple and elegant is this glass fall piece I found on Pinterest? I love how the twine just adds a little something to the glass. I want to use some of my thrifted pieces, some of my Dollar Tree pieces, and some of my upcycled pieces to take this one idea and create an awesome cohesive collection using some twine. And not only do I want to share how we can take different bottles from thrift stores, from our upcycled stash, from Dollar Tree, and use some twine to tie them all together to make a bunch of decor, I want to also show you how you can reuse these even after we DIY them, simply by not gluing anything onto your glass. First, just tie a knot like this with your twine, and then hold it in place and start wrapping. Wrap whatever design or whatever way and in whatever spot you would like on your glass pieces. When you get to the end, you're gonna take your hot glue and you're gonna apply it onto the twine, not onto the glass. And this includes if you're adding fabric, if you're adding burlap, if you're adding florals, just glue it onto the twine. You can even nestle your floral pieces like I am here underneath of your twine and wrap it in and then glue it. This way, as the seasons go on throughout the year or your style changes, you get tired of looking at these, grab them suckers from wherever you got them around your house and just cut the twine off. Then you have fresh blank glass pieces you didn't have to spend any more money on or any more time scrubbing food pieces you decided to upcycle, and just put new crafty ideas onto pieces you already had. Even if you want to use some fabric, you do not have to attach it to the glass. You just wrap it nice and snugly around the glass, make sure it is tight, then take a little bit of that glue, put it on the fabric itself, press it down until you notice that it is attached, and then grab some of that twine, tie a little knot just like we did with the other ones, and then repeat the process. You'll be able to remove this just like you are without the fabric. And then once you have your fabric on here, your twine on here, you can take any accents, any floral pieces you would like, and just attach everything to your twine. I love how one Pinterest inspired piece can create so many different ideas.